It was an early morning. Mackenzie was sitting outside her house waiting for her best friend Riley to pick her up for school. She didn't have her own car yet, but she had been saving up money so that she would be able to buy her own car. And her best friend Riley, a guy the same age, only lived only a few houses down from her, so that on the same street, and they had been best friends since elementary school. She even saw him like a brother as well, and he didn't mind to pick her up, but they also picked up another passenger on the same side on the street, and that would be Madison. Madison was actually Mackenzie's girlfriend, and they had been dating for about a year now. They only had told a close few friends about their relationship. There was one particular good reason why they didn't tell everyone at the school, and that reason was a girl named Caitlin. Caitlin is known as a school bully, and they didn't want to become the next target of hers. Even though the school has non-bullying policy, no one ever dared to tell any of the teachers about it since Caitlin had been bullied so badly with verbal harassments. So that is the reason why of her terror of bullying hasn't even been noticed by any of the staff. At least they wouldn't have been physically harmed by Caitlin. So that is the reason why Madison and Mackenzie had chosen not to tell everyone at school, only to some close friends that they can trust. And these friends hadn't even told anyone else about it, which they are happy to. The only ones that are close friends that they know, which is Riley. Riley was also someone that Mackenzie could trust deeply. And as she was standing by her house waiting for Riley to show up, suddenly a car did show up. Hey, sorry if I'm a little bit late. It's a fine, Riley. You're just in time. Okay, hop in. Or we'll be pick up Madison on the way before school. All right then. So Mackenzie hopped in the car and they drove. They only drove for maybe a few houses down, where they picked up Madison outside her house. She and Mackenzie sat in the back seat and gave each other a hug and a kiss. On the way to school, Madison asked if Mackenzie wanted to come over to do the homework with her after school. And Mackenzie smiled and said, "Yeah, why not? I mean, you always do." Madison nodded and she agreed. When they came to school, they just walked in as normal, and throughout the entire school day, they always been on high alert if Caitlin was even nearby, because they didn't want to show her any signs of any dating between them, because they didn't want to be a target of her. After when school was over, Riley drove both Mackenzie and Madison over to Madison's house. They thanked her for the drive, and they went inside her house and went straight to her room and started working on the homeworks. After about 2 hours of doing the homeworks and when they were finished, Madison asked if Mackenzie wanted to play some video games. Mackenzie just like, "Well, you know I always liked your games." "Right then," she said, but smiled and said after games. Madison actually sat in Mackenzie's lap while they were playing the games. They were always doing this. But there was one topic they talked about while they playing the games. And that was about the future. Only their families knows about them being together and they didn't mind it. But they often talked about their future, what they wanted to do. Like if they would end up getting married one day, or how soon they will get married, or if they will get to college or something. But Mackenzie told Madison that she didn't have any particular plans to go to college or university after this. And Madison said that she had thought about going to college, but she wasn't really sure if she would. But it was just something that she talked about herself with her family from time to time. Rest of the afternoon, both Mackenzie and Madison continued to play some games until Mackenzie had to go home. The relationship between Mackenzie and Madison was stable and strong. They were just happy to be with the one they loved the most. In fact, it was actually Mackenzie that walked up to Madison after school and asked her if she would be willing to be going out on a date. Because she knew that Madison liked both girls and boys, and that's the same thing as for Mackenzie. And as for Mackenzie, find out when she asked her, Madison did actually confess that she did have feelings for Madison and for Mackenzie as well. So they did decided to go on a date, and it didn't take long for them to realize they were actually so much in love with each other. So they decided to be official, but only told a few friends about that. But one day, it would eventually change. Because one day when they were standing by Mackenzie's locker, just small talk, they heard a voice behind them. So, how long had you two been dating? They realized by the tone of the voice it was Caitlin. They turned around and saw, in fact, it was her. She was standing there with a big grin of smile, and they looked at each other like, how in the world she didn't find out? So they's like, yeah, we have been dating for a while, so what? Then she said, girls shouldn't be dating girls, it's just not right. So what? People are allowed to be dating anyone that they're, regardless if the same gender or opposite, said Madison back. No, they shouldn't be. Well, they are, said Mackenzie back, and they just, as she closed her locker, and they just both walked off. Ever since then, Caitlin had tried to bully them multiple times throughout the day, but every single attempt she did seemed to be pointless, because they just ignored her, and it only made her pissed off. Because when she saw that her attempts of bullying them didn't even work or even seem to affect them much at all, she was really wanted to bully them more. But even after this, both Mackenzie and Madison had asked around to the friends they had told if they had told anyone about their relationship, but all said no, they hadn't. And when they asked why, then they told them that Caitlin has somehow found out, and they were all stunned. They had made a promise to keep their secret as an airtight secret. But it turned out later on that they found out that Caitlin had by surprise saw them kissing in the hallway, which turned out then she realized they were dating. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that. But despite that, Riley told both Mackenzie and Madison to be careful. But they just like, don't worry about it, Riley. We know both that she will only bullying us verbally, but we know about her constant bullying, and we will not let it affect us. Well, but Riley said, well, you had to be careful otherwise. I mean, considering that no one actually has never told anyone else, any other teachers, well, as long as she doesn't seem to be affecting us, she might just stop and pass on to them, maybe just stop. If that was so simple, they thought. But from time to time during the next couple of days, things did seems like she was stopping. But it didn't. She continued to call them names and try to tell them they shouldn't be together, but other people told her to back off and told her to stop. But she ignored them, but Madison and Mackenzie just ignored Caitlin. But one day, it all would end up in such dark turn. Because one day, when they were in a school cafeteria, just having lunch, when suddenly, when Mackenzie and Madison was eating lunch with Riley, when When Caitlin walked up to them and told them just stop doing this and called us a bad names, but this time Riley said just told her to back off and just simply stop. And he told her to just go back to her own table and leave them alone. But she just ignored him and continued as he didn't exist. But then, as he was about to stand up, then everyone who was talking suddenly stopped. For that reason, they heard this echoing sound of a gunshot inside the school, and everyone hides under beneath the tables. And suddenly, two males walks in. Riley Mackenzie, Riley, Mackenzie's best friend, knows them. There were two former students that dropped out earlier that year due to the fact of Caitlin's constant bullying them, and they demanded to see her. Like, and their names was Gary and Adam. They demanded to see where were located. But everyone was silent. It was a silence. No one did even dared to even move a muscle. But then one of the guys, Gary, screamed out, "Caitlin, get out here right now!" And then he shoots one round in the ceiling as a statement that he's not king around. And then suddenly, Mackenzie crawls out from her table, and even though that Madison and Riley told her not to, but it was pointless. She was already out from the table and stand up and try to talk to them. Gary, Adam, please don't do this. Are you really? Do you really want to go to school armed with weapons like this? We know that both of you were so constant bullying about Caitlin. You know, yeah, everyone knew about it, but no one tried to even stop her. But Caitlin, she just, you know how she is. She bullied everyone else about this, said Mackenzie calmly. But she realized it was pointless. She could see how both Gary and Ada were so pissed off. They just wanted Caitlin, who was hiding under a table with a few other people. They couldn't see her, so they threatened to shooting the roof once again, and even though Mackenzie once again tried to reason with them, but they didn't want to listen. They started to lose their patience, and they tells Caitlin to come out or they will find her and grab her out with them and kill her for her constant bullying and ruining their school years. Mackenzie was now both horrified but tried to act calmly, talking to both of them, but to tell them that this wasn't the right way to do this. They could try to calm them down, but then Adam points his firearm at her and to be, "You need to be shut up right now." But Mackenzie was very terrified. But she tried to act calmly. Even though that Madison and Riley could see how she was shaken by just standing there. Caitlin, who has been listening to all these conversations between them, she slowly crawls out from the table and she stands up and Gary points his firearm at her and tells her to be quiet and that they will end her reign of terror of bullying at the school, and has his words, "This is a payback for not only me and Adam, but everyone you have been bullied." Mackenzie once again tried to talk to them calmly and even walked up to Caitlin and stood in front of her. She tried once again to talk to both Adam and Gary, but one of them snapped, and he said, "You need to be shut up," and then he shoots her in the stomach, which made Mackenzie to fall backwards on the floor, bleeding. Both the ex-former students, Gary and Adam, freaks out, because even though they said that they would shoot Caitlin, but they never even had intention to do that. Because even though they had firearms, but they never had the intention to shoot anyone, not even Caitlin. So they just, as they freaked out, they turned around and quickly ran out of the cafeteria. But as they left the building, they were quickly arrested by the police, who was already outside. At the same time, Riley was holding the pressure on the wound on Mackenzie's stomach. She had already passed out. She had only lost consciousness. But as soon enough, the paramedics arrived in and took her to the hospital, and she had to go for surgery because that extensive of the seriously injured. And as Mackenzie was being taken out from the cafeteria, Madison, when she saw this happen, she fainted on the floor herself. But this news became widespread in the town because shortly after this event had ended, Mackenzie's parents had been informed of this and they rushed to the hospital along with Madison and Riley because they were there. And they were just waiting in the waiting room for at least a few hours until the doctor came out to inform them that her surgery was a success and she will make it. Mackenzie had to remain in the hospital for a couple of days since her condition after she was shot was really serious. She could have lost her life. But thanks to goodness that she did pull through. And a day after her surgery, Madison came over to see her. And she was crying when she was in her room. She couldn't stop crying at all. She just said that she couldn't believe that it happened. And she even said Mackenzie was such a fool to even consider to even do that. But in the end, at least she was at least happy that none other than Caitlin wasn't hurt. Madison told Mackenzie that Gary and Adam had been arrested and they were given a long time sentence in jail. And it was probably best. And even though that even Riley had came to the hospital to see how Mackenzie was doing, he told her the same thing, like she was an idiot trying to do this. But he knows that she wouldn't even stand to let anyone else get hurt, even though she had to this end to not making the event to escalate to even further. He knows that how brave and a noble heart she is. But he told her, next time, maybe not do the same thing again. And she promised. After that, after about a couple of days, she was allowed to return home. And she went back to school after a couple of days after that. She later learned that Caitlin had been immediately expelled after all of this incident. The secrets of her terror of bullying came out. She was arrested and she was sent to a school for troubled kids. Ever since the incident happened, the principal made sure that this won't be repeating itself again. He made another promise to everyone at the school. He told the students, if anyone being bullied by anyone or they're seeing someone being bullied, always come forward to him directly or any of the teachers, because he doesn't want anyone else to be a next target to be dropped out of school and these things could happen again. He won't even allow it. And he made sure that everyone remembers the non-bullying policy at the school has. And ever since then, the relationship between Mackenzie and Madison remained strong. They were just happy to be with the one they loved the most of all. And after they both finished high school, they chose not to go to college. 3 years after they finished high school, they actually bought a small house together when they were 21. They even got married at the time. but they used to only had a small wedding with close friends and family since they weren't even that rich, to be honest. But shortly after they had got married, only about 1 year later, they wanted to start a family of their own. So they went to an adoption agency town to see if there was a possibility they could adopt maybe one or two children. They were lucky though, because they actually had a time a pair of siblings that was looking for a new home. A boy named Miles and a girl named Lucy. Lucy was the younger one. And when Mackenzie and Madison met both Miles and Lucy, they were just very happy. But Lucy, she was very shy. She was almost quiet. The reason is why both of them were so silent is because they lost both their parents in a car crash only about a couple of months earlier. So they had only been in the system for a couple of months. And both Mackenzie and Madison was just heartbreaking. But they decided they wanted to adopt both Miles and Lucy. It did take some time for both Miles and Lucy to, mostly for Lucy, to accept Madison and Mackenzie as their mothers. But after a little bit of a while, they actually opened up and accepted both them as their parents. And ever since then, Mackenzie and Madison were just happy not only to be married with the one they loved the most in the whole world and have such amazing family. Miles, he turned out to be very talented in drawing, and Lucy, she was very talented in, well, in cooking, baking, but most of all, in drawing herself. Both Mackenzie and Madison told them that they will never replace their love for their original parents at all. They just will be their second parents to make sure that they will always have the best in life. In fact, Lucy and Miles actually had a photo of their old parents in their new home so that they can remember them by who they are and never forget them. Madison was just happy that all this couldn't have happened if she had lost Mackenzie a few years earlier when she was shot during that incident in the high school. Even Mackenzie was really happy that it didn't happen. She could not have imagined how her life would have been if she never ended up being with Madison in the first place. Same thing as for Madison. She had no idea how her life would have been if she wasn't with Mackenzie originally. And this is how Mackenzie and Madison found a true love, got a family together. The end.